Let us begin a peaceful journey through time, back to Renaissance Milan, where one of the world's most recognizable masterpieces came to life. Breathe deeply, and let these stories wash over you like gentle waves. Fact 1. A wall that breathes history. In a quiet refectory in Milan, on the wall of Santa Maria del Grazie, Leonardo da Vinci began painting the Last Supper in 1495. Take a moment to imagine this dining hall, where Dominican monks once gathered for their evening meals, sitting beneath this breathtaking scene of Christ's final supper with his disciples. The painting stretches across the entire northern wall, measuring 15 feet high and 29 feet wide. Leonardo chose this immense scale to make viewers feel as though they were sitting at the table themselves, sharing this sacred moment. Close your eyes and picture it, the soft candlelight of the refectory, the quiet reverence, and above it all, this magnificent tableau unfolding. Fact 2. An experiment in time. Leonardo was not content with traditional fresco techniques, and this choice would echo through the centuries. Instead of painting on wet plaster, as was customary, he experimented with tempera on dry plaster. This allowed him to work slowly, thoughtfully, adding layer upon delicate layer of detail. He wanted time to perfect each expression, each gesture, each fold of cloth. But this innovative approach came with a price. The paint began flaking away within Leonardo's own lifetime. Even now, over 500 years later, conservators work lovingly to preserve what remains. Sometimes, the pursuit of perfection carries its own gentle melancholy. Fact 3. The mathematics of divinity. If you were to draw lines from the painting's vanishing point, you would find they all converge perfectly on Christ's right temple. Leonardo was a master of perspective, and he used mathematical precision to draw the viewer's eye exactly where he wanted it. The corfed ceiling above the figures, the tapestries on the walls, the very architecture of the painted room, all guide your gaze toward the serene face of Christ at the center. This is sacred geometry, mathematics in service of the divine. Let yourself appreciate this harmony, this perfect balance, where art and science embrace in tranquil unity. Fact 4. A moment frozen in drama. Leonardo chose to capture the instant immediately after Christ announced, "One of you will betray me." Look at the disciples' faces, each responding in their own way to this shocking declaration. Some lean forward in disbelief, others pull back in horror, hands gesture, mouths open in surprise or denial. Leonardo studied human emotion intensely, sketching faces in the streets of Milan, observing how grief transforms a countenance, how shock ripples across features. He wanted authentic human reaction, not stiff, formal poses. Even now, you can feel the wave of emotion moving through the apostles, from left to right, like wind across water. Fact 5. The mysterious hands. Count the hands visible in the painting, and you will find 13 pairs, yet there are only 12 apostles plus Christ. One hand remains mysteriously unattached, its owner uncertain. Art historians have pondered this enigma for generations. Was it an intentional symbol, or simply the result of Leonardo's constant revisions? He was known to change his mind, painting over sections, adjusting positions. Perhaps this floating hand is a reminder that perfection always remains just out of reach, that mystery enhances beauty rather than diminishing it. Some questions need not be answered, only appreciated. Fact 6. Judas in plain sight. In earlier depictions of the Last Supper, Judas was typically separated from the group, isolated on the opposite side of the table, making his betrayal obvious. But Leonardo made a revolutionary choice. He placed Judas among the other disciples, at the same table, part of the community. Yet see how Judas clutches a small bag, his 30 pieces of silver. His face falls into shadow. He leans away from Christ, creating psychological distance while remaining physically close. Leonardo understood that betrayal often comes from within, from those we sit beside, breaking bread together. This truth still resonates, quietly, powerfully. Fact 7. 3 years of contemplation. Leonardo worked on the Last Supper for approximately 3 years, though not continuously. He would sometimes climb the scaffolding at dawn and paint feverishly until darkness fell, not even pausing to eat. Other times, he would arrive, study the painting for hours without lifting a brush, then leave. The prior of the monastery grew frustrated with these long silences. But Leonardo believed that thinking was as important as doing, that creativity required patience, contemplation, allowing ideas to ripen like fruit on a vine. In our hurried world, this reminder feels especially soothing. Some things cannot be rushed. Fact 8. A room within a room. Leonardo created a brilliant illusion, painting an extension of the actual refectory space. The painted room's dimensions echo the real room's architecture, and the light in the painting appears to come from the actual windows on the left wall. When monks sat down to dinner, it would have seemed as though Christ and the apostles were dining in the same space, at the same time. The boundary between art and reality dissolved. Leonardo wanted to collapse the distance between the viewer and the sacred event, to make the past present, to transform a wall into a window through time. Stand before it, and 5 centuries vanish like morning mist. This painting has survived against impossible odds. In 1652, a doorway was cut through the bottom center, destroying Christ's feet. During World War II, bombs struck the refectory, reducing most of the building to rubble, yet the wall bearing the Last Supper remained standing, a miracle of chance or providence. Napoleon's troops used the refectory as a stable, treating this masterpiece with shocking indifference. Through flood, through neglect, through war and weathering, the painting endured. Between 1978 and 1999, the most comprehensive restoration in history brought new life to Leonardo's fading colors. Some beauty refuses to die. Fact 10. An eternal question. Perhaps the painting's greatest gift is a question it poses to each viewer, the question Christ asked his disciples, the question that echoes through time. Is it I, Lord? Each apostle asked this, each wondering if they could be the betrayer. Leonardo invites us into this moment of self-examination. In the quiet of our hearts, we too must ask, what are we capable of? Where might we fall short? But also, the painting reminds us of gathering together, of community, of sharing meals and fellowship, even knowing our own imperfections. There is something deeply comforting in this, that we are all seated at the table, beautifully, fragilely human. Let these images rest in your mind as you drift toward peaceful sleep, a wall in Milan, a moment of drama frozen in time, questions that transcend centuries, and beauty that refuses to fade, even as we fade into dreams. Part 2. Deeper into the masterpiece. Minutes 11 to 20. And now, let us return to that sacred wall and discover more secrets hidden within Leonardo's masterpiece. Breathe slowly and allow these stories to unfold like petals opening to moonlight. Fact 11. The artist's invisible presence. Leonardo left no signature on the Last Supper, yet his presence permeates every brushstroke. Some scholars believe he painted himself into the scene, perhaps as the Apostle Thaddeus, Second from the right. Leonardo often embedded himself in his works, a quiet witness to the scenes he created. But whether or not his literal face appears, his mind is everywhere visible. In the mathematical precision, in the psychological depth, in the innovative techniques. An artist need not sign their name when their vision speaks so clearly. Sometimes, the greatest presence requires no announcement. Fact 12. A symphony of color. Though much of the original color has faded, recent restorations revealed Leonardo's palette was far more vibrant than anyone imagined. Deep blues made from precious lapis lazuli, rich red from vermilion, golden ochres and warm earth tones. Christ wore robes of red and blue, the colors of humanity and divinity intertwined. Each apostle's garments were carefully chosen, creating a rhythm of color across the wall of visual music. Leonardo understood that color affects emotion, that warm tones embrace us while cool tones create distance. Even in its weathered state, the painting still sings softly. Fact 13. The language of hands. Look closely at the hands throughout the composition, and you'll see Leonardo's genius for gesture. Hands that reach, that recall, that question, that plead. Leonardo filled notebooks with studies of hands, understanding they could express what faces alone could not. Christ's hands are open, peaceful, accepting his fate. Thomas points upward, perhaps questioning heaven itself. Peter grips a knife, foreshadowing his later actions in Gethsemane. These hands tell stories within stories. Close your eyes and imagine them, speaking in silence, more eloquent than words could ever be. Fact 14. The missing silver and gold. When Leonardo painted the Last Supper, he chose not to use gold leaf or silver, materials commonly used in religious art of his time. Other artists gilded halos and highlighted sacred objects with precious metals, creating paintings that glittered in candlelight. But Leonardo wanted realism. He wanted this moment to feel human, accessible, true. There are no halos floating above heads, no supernatural glow. Just 13 men in a room, caught in a moment of profound emotion. Sometimes, the most sacred art reminds us that divinity touches earth, that holy moments happen in ordinary spaces. Fact 15. The architect of emotion. The room Leonardo painted is architecturally impossible, yet emotionally perfect. The space is too shallow, the perspective slightly exaggerated, the proportions subtly wrong. But these impossibilities serve a purpose. They compress the figures forward, toward us, making the scene more immediate, more intimate. Leonardo was not documenting reality. He was creating a heightened reality where emotional truth matters more than architectural accuracy. This is the artist's privilege, to reshape the world until it reveals deeper meanings. Let this thought comfort you, that truth and fact are not always the same thing. Fact 16. The sound of silence. Imagine the sound in this painted room. You can almost hear it, can't you? The scrape of chairs, the sharp intake of breath, voices beginning to overlap in confusion and denial. Leonardo captured a moment that is both silent and deafeningly loud. The apostles' mouths are open, words forming, yet we hear nothing. This silence is powerful. It allows each viewer to imagine the voices themselves, to fill the scene with their own internal soundtrack. Great art often knows when to withhold, when to let the viewer complete the experience. In silence, we find our own meaning. Fact 17. The 13 personalities. Leonardo didn't paint 12 identical disciples in Christ. He painted 13 distinct individuals. Each apostle has their own personality, their own way of processing shock. Philip presses his hand to his chest, asking, "Surely not I?" Matthew spreads his arms wide in disbelief. Simon the Zealot shows agitation. James the Lesser touches Peter's shoulder. Leonardo spent months planning these characterizations, sketching countless variations. He wanted a painting where you could study each face, each figure, and find a complete human being. We are all represented here, in our confusion, our faith, our fear, our love. Which apostle speaks to your soul tonight? Fact 18. The table as threshold. The table in the painting serves as more than furniture. It's a boundary between their world and ours. Notice how it runs parallel to the picture plane, creating a barrier, yet also an invitation. The food and drink placed upon it, the bread and wine, become bridges between the sacred past and our present moment. In Leonardo's time, viewers would have recognized these elements instantly, understanding the Last Supper as the institution of the Eucharist. The table holds a promise of communion, of connection across time and space. Even now, separated by centuries, we are invited to this meal. Fact 19. The weathering of time. Within 20 years of completion, the paint was already deteriorating. By 1556, just 60 years later, one biographer described it as so badly damaged that nothing is visible but a dazzling mass of blots. And yet, people still came. They still stood before this fading masterpiece and felt its power. Perhaps this teaches us something profound about beauty, that it transcends physical perfection. A painting that exists more in memory and imagination than on the wall can still move hearts. Impermanence is not the enemy of meaning. Even as things fade, their essence can grow stronger. Let this thought ease any anxieties about aging, about change, about letting go. Fact 20. The eternal meal. The Last Supper depicts a meal, that most universal of human experiences. Throughout history, across all cultures, people gather to share food, to nourish not just bodies but relationships. Leonardo elevated this simple act into something transcendent. When you sit down to dinner tomorrow, you participate in the same ritual painted on that wall in Milan. Breaking bread together, sharing wine, looking into faces across a table. These moments create community, forge bonds, mark both ordinary days and extraordinary occasions. Leonardo reminds us that every meal carries a potential for meaning, that every gathering might be remembered, that every shared moment matters. Rest in this tonight, the comfort of continuity, the traditions that connect us across vast distances and time. Let yourself drift now, imagining a table set with care, faces in candlelight, the quiet power of presence, and the understanding that some moments echo forever through time. Part 3. Leonardo's vision unfolds. We continue our gentle exploration, peeling back layers of history and meaning, discovering how one man's vision transformed a simple wall into a window through which all humanity might glimpse the divine. Fact 21. The speed of genius. Contemporary accounts tell us that Leonardo could be seen standing before the wall for hours, brush in hand, adding only a single stroke. Then he might leave, returning days later to add another. The Duke of Milan, Ludovico Sforza, who commissioned the work, grew impatient with this pace. But Leonardo knew something essential, that great works cannot be hurried. Each line, each shadow, each glance between figures required deep consideration. In our world of instant gratification, there is something profoundly peaceful about imagining Leonardo standing there, thinking, waiting for the perfect moment to touch brush to wall. Creativity has its own rhythm, its own breathing, and it cannot be forced. Fact 22. The window that isn't there. Behind Christ's head, Leonardo painted 3 windows. The central window frames Christ's head like a halo without painting one, a subtle brilliance. Through these painted windows, we glimpse a serene landscape, soft hills fading into atmospheric perspective, a world beyond the drama of the room. Some scholars suggest this represents a kingdom of heaven. Others see it as simple Lombard countryside. But notice how it creates depth, how it suggests there is always something beyond, something more. Even in our darkest moments, when betrayal and sorrow fill the room, there are windows opening onto distant horizons. This thought can carry us gently toward sleep. Fact 23. The Apostles in Groups. Leonardo organized the 12 apostles into 4 groups of 3, a compositional choice that creates visual harmony and theological meaning. The number 3 echoes the Trinity, while 4 represents the evangelists, the corners of the earth, the elements. This mathematical arrangement provides structure beneath the apparent chaos of emotion. Bartholomew, James the Lesser, and Andrew form the first group on the left, while Matthew, Thaddeus, and Simon complete the composition on the right. In between, the drama intensifies around Christ. Life is like this, isn't it? Structure and spontaneity dancing together, order and emotion in eternal conversation. Fact 24. The bread and wine. On the table before Christ, Leonardo placed bread and wine, simple elements that carry infinite meaning. The bread is broken, scattered across the white tablecloth. Small glasses of wine catch the light. These are the elements of the Eucharist, the body and blood, the sacred made tangible. But they're also just bread and wine, food and drink, sustenance of the body. Leonardo maintained this beautiful duality throughout the painting, the human and divine forever intertwined, inseparable. We need not choose between earth and heaven, between the material and spiritual. They nourish us together, like bread and wine, like body and soul. Fact 25. The Judas Problem. Legend says Leonardo struggled for months to find the right model for Judas. How do you paint the face of betrayal? Some stories claim he finally used the face of the prior who had been rushing him to finish, though this is likely apocryphal. The truth is more interesting. Leonardo gave Judas a human face, not a monstrous one. Judas looks troubled, guilty perhaps, but not evil incarnate. This was Leonardo's insight, that betrayal doesn't announce itself with obvious villainy. It was an ordinary face, sits at our table, shares our bread. This recognition is uncomfortable, but also strangely freeing. If even Judas is human, then redemption remains possible for all of us. Fact 26. The light secret. The light in the painting comes from 2 sources, and this creates a subtle tension that most viewers never consciously notice. The painted light comes from the left, matching the actual refectory windows. But Leonardo also painted light emanating from behind Christ, from those 3 windows, creating a gentle glow around the central figure. This dual lighting should feel wrong, should create visual confusion, but instead it elevates Christ subtly, naturally. Leonardo understood that we often perceive things without understanding why. The painting works on our emotions before our intellect can analyze it. Trust your feelings. They know truths that thoughts take longer to discover. Fact 27. The feet that vanished. When that doorway was cut through the wall in 1652, Christ's feet disappeared forever. This loss carries its own poetry. The feet that washed the disciples' feet at this very meal, the feet that walked on water, that would soon be pierced with nails, gone. We know they were there once. Leonardo painted them, but now they exist only in copies and descriptions. Some losses cannot be recovered, some damage cannot be undone. And yet, the painting endures. Its power remains undiminished. We too can survive our losses, remain whole even when pieces of us have been taken away. Wholeness is not the same as being undamaged. Fact 28. The copyist's devotion. From the moment of its creation, artists copied the Last Supper. Dozens of copies exist, some made while Leonardo still lived, when the colors were still fresh. These copies are precious now. They show us what has been lost time. They are also deeply moving testimonies to the painting's power. Imagine dedicating months or years to copying someone else's masterpiece, not to deceive, but to preserve, to study, to honor. These copyists knew they were in the presence of something transcendent. They wanted to carry a piece of it away, to understand how Leonardo achieved such magic. We all seek this, don't we? To touch greatness, to hold beauty close, to make the extraordinary somehow our own. Fact 29. The Christ at center. While chaos swirls around him, Christ sits in perfect stillness at the painting's center. His face is calm, accepting, tinged with sadness but not despair. His arms spread wide in a gesture that could be resignation or embrace. Leonardo painted him as the eye of the storm, the still point around which everything else revolves. This is the painting's beating heart, the serenity in the face of betrayal and approaching death. In moments of turbulence, we can return to our own center, find that still point within. External chaos need not disturb internal peace. Christ's calm face reminds us, even now, even tonight, that tranquility is always available, always waiting, right at our center. Fact 30. The Prior's Complaint. The prior of Santa Maria del Grazie complained to the Duke about Leonardo's work habits. The artist would arrive at sunrise, climb the scaffolding, and paint with furious intensity until darkness made work impossible, forgetting to eat or drink. Other times he wouldn't touch the painting for days, just standing, looking, thinking. The prior wanted consistent progress, daily advancement. But Leonardo knew something the prior didn't, that creative work has its own mysterious timetable. Sometimes we work, sometimes we wait. Sometimes the waiting is the work. As you prepare for sleep tonight, know that rest is not the opposite of productivity. Rest is where creativity gathers itself, where the next breakthrough begins, where the soul replenishes what the work demands. Feel yourself settling deeper now, like paint absorbing into plaster, becoming one with the quiet, with a stillness at the center, where all questions find their rest. Fact 31. The Tablecloth's Tale. The white tablecloth stretching across the table is a marvel of painted texture. Leonardo rendered every fold, every shadow, every place where fabric gathers or smooths. This cloth grounds the entire scene in reality, making the impossible perspective feel possible. White is the most difficult color to paint, requiring layer upon layer to achieve depth and variation. But Leonardo understood that mundane details, like tablecloths, anchor miraculous moments. The divine touches her through ordinary things, through bread, through wine, through woven cloth. Tonight, as you rest on your own linens, remember that the commonplace can cradle the sacred. Simple comforts matter deeply. Fact 32. The Apostle Andrew's Hands. Andrew, seated at the far left of the painting, raises both hands in a gesture of wonder and horror. His palms face outward, Fingers spread, a universal expression of shock that transcends time and culture. Leonardo observed this gesture in the streets of Milan, in moments of surprise or dismay. He understood that the body speaks before words form, that we gesture our emotions into being. Andrew's hands have been speaking for 5 centuries, saying what words cannot. When language fails us, the body remembers how to communicate. Even in silence, even in sleep, we are always expressing, always reaching out, always connected to this ancient vocabulary of gesture. Fact 33. The mysterious menu. Scholars have long debated what foods appear on the table. Oranges, or perhaps bread rolls. Eel, a Good Friday tradition in Milan. Herring, the degradation of the paint makes certainty impossible. But this mystery is beautiful in its own way. The Last Supper was a real meal, with real food, flavors and textures and aromas now lost to history. What did they taste? What did they savor? Leonardo painted enough to suggest abundance, communion, sustenance, but left the specifics to fade. Sometimes the essence matters more than the details. Sometimes not knowing is its own kind of knowing. Let unanswered questions rest gently. They need not trouble your peace. Fact 34. The architecture of faith. The painted room extends a real refectory's architecture with such precision that the two spaces seem to merge. The coiffured ceiling's vanishing point, the tapestries on the walls, the doorways on either side, all create a convincing illusion of depth. Leonardo studied Brunelleschi's discoveries about perspective, absorbed the mathematics of spatial recession, then applied these principles with perfect fluency. But he did so not to show off his knowledge, rather to serve the painting's spiritual purpose. Technical mastery in service of meaning, knowledge in service of transcendence. The greatest skills are those that disappear into what they create, leaving only beauty, only truth. Fact 35. The color of betrayal. Judas wears garments of green and yellow, colors that in Renaissance symbolism carry complex meanings. Green could signify hope or envy. Yellow sometimes represented betrayal or cowardice. But Leonardo was subtle. These aren't garish costume choices. They are naturalistic, believable, only revealing their significance upon reflection. This is how betrayal often works, isn't it? Looking ordinary, even attractive, until later when we understand what happened. The painting teaches us to look deeper, to notice what hides in plain sight. But it also teaches gentleness, for we all wear colors we don't fully understand, carry meanings we didn't choose. Fact 36. The young John. St. John, seated immediately to Christ's right, is depicted as young, almost feminine in feature, with head tilted and eyes downcast. This is John the Beloved, the disciple whom Jesus loved. Leonardo painted him overcome with emotion, perhaps leaning away from Christ in grief, or leaning toward Peter who speaks urgently. John's youth and beauty contrast with the weathered faces around him, suggesting innocence about to be lost. We all have our moment of John, when the world reveals its capacity for betrayal, when innocence encounters harsh truth. But see how Christ's presence remains close, how love persists even through revelation. We are never abandoned in our grief. Fact 37. The Peter, John, Judas triangle. On Christ's right, 3 figures create the painting's most dynamic composition. Peter leans in, his body language aggressive, protective. John bends away or perhaps collapses in sorrow. And Judas, clutching his money bag, leans back into shadow. These 3, so different in their responses, create a triangle of emotional intensity. Leonardo orchestrated their positions like a conductor, each movement answering another, each gesture creating meaning through relationship. We exist not in isolation but in connection, our actions rippling outward, affecting others in ways we may never fully comprehend. This web of relationship, this is where life happens, in the space between us. Fact 38. The windows to infinity. Those three windows behind Christ don't just show landscape. They demonstrate Leonardo's mastery of atmospheric perspective. The hills fade from green to blue to pale violet as they recede, becoming lighter and less distinct, exactly as distant objects appear through layers of atmosphere. Leonardo studied this phenomenon intensely, understanding that air itself is color and substance. This technique creates infinite depth in a painted wall, suggesting that beyond every boundary lies more space, more possibility. Tonight, as consciousness fades toward sleep, you too will experience this atmospheric perspective, thoughts becoming distant, less distinct, dissolving into soft horizons of dream. Fact 39. The musical composition. If you could hear this painting, what would it sound like? Leonardo compared painting to music, both art of harmony and proportion. The rhythm of the apostles' positions creates visual music, a crescendo building toward Christ, then flowing outward again. The repetition of certain angles and gestures creates rhyme. The contrast between stillness and movement creates tempo. Some art historians have even attempted to translate the painting's proportions into musical notation. Whether or not this produces beautiful sound, the impulse recognizes something true, that great visual art has rhythm, has melody, has the power to make the eye dance as music makes a body sway. Let this painted music lull you gently onward. Fact 40. The Restoration's Revelation. When the massive restoration concluded in 1999, after 21 years of painstaking work, viewers saw details that had been hidden for centuries. Folds in fabric previously invisible, expressions on faces previously obscured, colors brighter than anyone remembered. It was like seeing the painting born again. But the restoration also revealed how much was truly lost, how many areas existed now only as ghostly shadows of Leonardo's original intention. This balance between recovery and loss, between what can be saved and what must be mourned, reflects our own lives. We restore what we can, we grieve what we cannot, and we find beauty in both. The painting teaches us to accept imperfection without surrendering to despair. Rest now in this space between recovery and loss, where what remains is enough, where faded beauty still speaks clearly, where even damaged things can teach us about grace. Part 5. The legacy lives on. As we approach the halfway point of our journey, let us explore how this painting reached beyond its wall, rippling outward through time, touching lives across centuries, whispering its truths to every generation. Fact 41. The Notebook Secrets. Leonardo's notebooks contain dozens of sketches for the Last Supper, studies of heads, hands, drapery, architectural elements. These preliminary drawings reveal his working process, how he refined each element through multiple iterations. One sketch shows Judas holding the money bag, another explores Peter's aggressive lean, still another captures John's sorrowful tilt. Leonardo didn't simply appear at the wall and paint. He thought on paper first, worked through problems, imagined possibilities. These notebooks remind us that finished masterpieces begin with uncertain explorations, that perfection emerges from process, that every beautiful thing was once just an idea, hesitant, searching, finding its way. Your own ideas deserve this patience, this gentle refinement. Fact 42. The Poet's Inspiration. When German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe saw copies of the Last Supper, he was so moved he wrote extensively about it, analyzing each apostle's reaction, imagining their inner thoughts. For Goethe, the painting wasn't just visual art. It was narrative, psychology, drama. He saw how Leonardo had created not just a picture but a story, a moment pregnant with meaning. Great art does this. It invites us to complete it, to bring our own interpretations, our own emotions, our own experiences. The painting has room for your story too, space for your understanding, welcoming your unique perspective. Art is a conversation, not a monologue, always waiting for your voice to join the dialogue. Fact 43. The convent's daily life. Imagine being a Dominican monk, eating your daily meals beneath this painting. Would it become ordinary through repetition, or would its power deepen with familiarity? The monks who dined their sword in morning light, in evening shadow, in candlelight's gentle glow. They saw it hungry, tired, celebrating feast days, mourning losses. The painting witnessed their entire community life. Perhaps great art needs this, needs to be lived with, needs to become part of daily rhythm rather than rare pilgrimage. The sacred becomes most powerful when woven into the ordinary, when transcendence touches Tuesday, when beauty blesses breakfast. You need not travel to Milan. The sacred waits in your own daily spaces. Fact 44. The painter's palette. Leonardo ground his own pigments, mixing colors with precise attention. Ultramarine from crushed lapis lazuli, shipped at great expense from Afghanistan. Red lake from crushed insects. Lead white, ochres from earth, carbon black from burnt wood. Each color had its own history, its own journey from source to wall. The painting is literally made from the earth, from stones and plants and minerals, transformed through knowledge and care into something transcendent. We too are earth, transformed. Our bodies are stardust, our thoughts are electrical patterns, yet somehow we create meaning. We love, we wonder. The transformation from matter to meaning is life's deepest magic, happening in Leonardo's studio, happening in you, happening always. Fact 45. The temperature time. The refectory's temperature and humidity fluctuated wildly over centuries, each change causing paint to expand and contract, to crack and flake. Summer heat, winter cold, the breath of thousands of visitors, cooking fires, floods, all left their marks. The painting carries its history in every crack, every loss, every surviving fragment. This weathering is part of its story now, inseparable from its meaning. We too are weathered by time, marked by what we survived, textured by experience. These marks don't diminish us. They are proof we lived, that we encountered the world and emerged still standing. Let your own weathering be honored tonight, your scars, your survivals, your beautiful endurance. Fact 46. The American copies. In the 19th century, American religious communities commissioned full-scale copies of the Last Supper for their institutions. They hungered to bring this masterpiece across the ocean, to make it their own. These copies, now faded themselves, testify to the painting's universal appeal. It belonged not just to Milan, not just to Italy, not just to Europe, but to all who sought meaning in its imagery. Art transcends borders, crosses oceans, speaks languages it was never taught. The truths Leonardo painted in 1490's Milan speak to hearts in 21st century everywhere. Some things are genuinely universal, touching what we all share, the human beneath all our differences. Fact 47. The disciples' real names: Bartholomew, James, Andrew, Peter, Judas, John, Thomas, James the Greater, Philip, Matthew, Thaddeus, Simon. These weren't just names to Leonardo. They were distinct individuals with documented personality from scripture and tradition. He studied their stories, understood their relationships with Christ, imagined their psychology. Peter's impetuousness, Thomas's doubt, John's devotion. Leonardo gave each apostle not just a face but a soul, not just a position but a personality. When we truly see others, when we recognize their full humanity, we create something sacred. Every person you encounter has this depth, this complexity, this worthiness of careful attention. Even in casual meetings, souls touch souls. Fact 48. The lighting miracle. Natural light from the refectory's left windows illuminates the actual painting, and Leonardo painted his scene as if lit from the same direction. This means the real light and painted light align, creating uncanny coherence between the real space and the painted space. As sunlight moves across the wall throughout the day, the painting seems to breathe, to change, to live. Morning light reveals certain details, afternoon light others. Evening shadow creates mystery. Leonardo understood that painting doesn't just represent light, it participates in light, becomes part of light's daily dance. All art exists in time, in flux, never the same twice. This impermanence is not weakness, it's vitality, it's proof of life. Fact 49. The unfinished elements. Despite working for 3 years, Leonardo considered the Last Supper unfinished. Some areas remained less detailed. Some elements never quite satisfied his perfectionist eye. He wanted to retain, to refine further, but the paint deterioration made additional work impossible. There's wisdom here about knowing when to stop, about accepting that done is better than perfect, about making peace with limitations. Every creative act must eventually be released, must become its own thing, must leave the creator's hands. What we make is never exactly what we envisioned, and that's not failure. That's the nature of making. Your own works, your own life, need not be perfect to be worthy, to be valuable, to matter deeply. Fact 50. The collective memory. The Last Supper exists now in collective human memory, perhaps more vividly than on the wall itself. It's been reproduced countless times, on greeting cards, in textbooks, on coffee mugs and calendars. Some criticize its ubiquity, claiming it cheapens a masterpiece. But perhaps it proves something else, that great art wants to multiply, to reach as many eyes as possible, to fulfill its purpose of communication. The painting's essence survives every reproduction, every parody, every reference. It has entered the visual vocabulary of humanity. When we invoke it, everyone understands. There's immortality through multiplication, through memory, through meaning. This is greater than any physical preservation. Ideas outlive walls, meaning outlast paint. Beauty persists beyond any single location. Feel yourself becoming memory now, thought dissolving into dream, the boundaries between yourself and the painting softening until you float in the same timeless space where 5 centuries collapse and all moments exist at once. Part 6. The deeper meanings unfold. We have journeyed far together, and now we enter the painting's deepest chambers, where symbol meets spirit, where Leonardo's genius reveals truth that transcends any single moment, any single wall, speaking to something eternal within us all. Fact 51. The numbers' sacred dance. Leonardo structured everything around sacred numbers. 13 figures, 12 apostles plus Christ, 4 groups of 3 apostles, echoing both Trinity and the 4 evangelists, 3 windows behind Christ. The table spans the width with mathematical precision. Renaissance thinkers believed numbers held divine significance, that mathematics was God's language. Leonardo spoke this language fluently, embedding numerical harmony into every proportion. When we encounter beauty, we're often responding to these hidden ratios, these mathematical relationships our minds recognize before our consciousness names them. Beauty as structure, even when that structure remains invisible. Order underlies apparent chaos, always, even in our dreams, even in our lives. Fact 52. The moment between moments. Leonardo chose the instant immediately after Christ's announcement, but before the disciples' words form. This is the moment between moments, when shock registers but response hasn't yet crystallized. It's the eternal present, the pause before action, the space where possibilities still exists. This in-between state is where we actually live most of our lives, not in dramatic climaxes, but in transitions, in the spaces between certainty and confusion, between knowing and unknowing. Leonardo painted this liminal space, this threshold, inviting us to recognize that the most important moments are often the unfinished ones, the questions without answers yet, the pauses pregnant with meaning. Breathe into this space now, this beautiful uncertainty, this not yet knowing. Fact 53. The painter's fingerprints. Recent analysis revealed Leonardo's actual fingerprint preserved in the paint, places where he smoothed pigment with his thumb, blended colors with his fingers. His physical touch remains, 5 centuries later, still visible under magnification. There's something profoundly moving about this, the artist's body making direct contact with his creation, no brush mediating, just skin on paint on plaster. We touch what he touched. We stand where he stood. The gap between 1498 and now collapses, and we're connected through this most intimate of traces. We all leave fingerprints in our world, marks of our presence, proof we were here, that we touched things, that we mattered. Your fingerprints, your unique marks, matter too. Fact 54. The empty space speaks. Notice the space above the figures' heads, the upper third of the composition, mostly empty except for the coiffured ceiling and upper walls. This emptiness isn't wasted space. It's essential. It gives the composition room to breathe, prevents claustrophobia, suggests height and dignity. Leonardo understood that what we don't paint matters as much as what we do, that silence enhances sound, that emptiness gives form its meaning. In our lives, too, white space matters, rest matters, pauses between actions, quiet between words. Don't fear the empty spaces, the moments without productivity or purpose. These spaces allow everything else to resonate, to matter, to be truly seen. Fact 55. The perspective's purpose. The exaggerated perspective pulls viewers into the scene, makes a painted room feel like an extension of real space. But it does something else too. It creates a sense of urgency, of drama, of intensity. The space seems to compress forward, pushing the figures toward us, making their emotions immediate and unavoidable. We cannot stand at comfortable distance. We're implicated, involved, made witnesses. Leonardo refuses to let this be merely decorative. The painting demands engagement, insists on mattering. Some truths cannot be observed from safe distance. Some moments require our full presence. The painting calls you in, even now, across all those miles and years, still calling, still inviting, still insisting you belong at this table. Fact 56. The Shadow Secrets. Leonardo was fascinated by shadows, studying how they soften edges, create volume, suggest mystery. In The Last Supper, shadows define character. Judas falls into shadow while others catch light. Shadows under the table suggest weight and presence. Shadows in the folds of fabric create texture and reality. But shadows also represent what we cannot fully know, the obscured, the hidden. Every figure has a shadowed side, their unknowable depths. We see faces but cannot read souls. Leonardo reminds us of our limits, of how much must remain mysterious. And this is okay. This is even beautiful. We need not understand everything. Some shadows should remain, honoring complexity, preserving wonder. Fact 57. The Body Language Poem. Read the painting like a poem written in bodies. Philip's hands press a chest. Thomas's finger pointing upward. James the Greater's arms spread wide. Matthew turning to Simon, each gesture a word, each posture a phrase. Together they create a text of emotion, a script of shock and sorrow and confusion and love. Leonardo understood that bodies tell stories, that we speak through movement and position and orientation as much as through words. Watch people tonight. Before you sleep, notice how they hold themselves, how they gesture, how their bodies betray or reveal. We are all writing poems with our physical presence, composing meaning through movement, expressing truths our mouths never voice. Fact 58. The Institution of Memory. The Last Supper depicts the moment when Christ instituted the Eucharist, commanding, "Do this in remembrance of me." It's a painting about memory, about ritual, about how we keep the past alive through repeated action. Every time believers share communion, they recreate this moment, collapsing time, making past present. The painting does the same work, keeping this moment perpetually alive, eternally present, always happening now. This is ART's deepest purpose, to defeat time, to make memory tangible, to prove that some moments never truly end. What we remember, what we revisit, what we ritualize, these things remain alive. Your own rituals, your own remembrances, create continuity between who you were and who you're becoming. Honor them tonight. Fact 59. The paint's materiality. The paint itself is mineral and plant and insect, crushed and mixed with binding medium, applied to plaster, becoming something entirely new. This transformation of material into meaning, of earth into art, mirrors larger transformations. Bread becomes body. Wine becomes blood. Paint becomes presence. Matter becomes spirit. Everything is always becoming something else, transforming, transcending its origins. You too are in constant transformation, cells replacing themselves, thoughts evolving, the person you were yesterday already becoming the person you are now. Change is not loss. It's a fundamental nature of existence. The painting teaches acceptance of transformation, celebration of becoming. Let yourself transform tonight. Cells regenerating, consciousness shifting, becoming tomorrow's version of yourself. Fact 60. The eternal question returns. We return to where we began, to the question Christ posed. One of you will betray me, and to each disciple's response, "Is it I, Lord?" This question echoes through time, through the painting, through every viewer's heart. We all must ask it. We all must face our capacity for betrayal, our moments of weakness, our potential for failing those we love. The painting doesn't offer easy answers. It offers only the question, hanging in the air, waiting. But in the asking, in the honest self-examination, in the willingness to wonder about our own hearts, we find grace. The painting suggests that acknowledging our potential for darkness is a first step toward choosing light. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let any self-judgment soften. We are all disciples at that table, all beautifully, heartbreakingly human, all worthy of the meal, all invited, all loved despite everything. Let the question dissolve now. Let all questions rest, knowing that some mysteries need no solving, some stories need no ending, some paintings speak forever, and some truths live in silence, in the space between waking and sleep, where you float now, peaceful, complete, exactly as you are. Part 7, The Living Presence. And so we continue deeper into the mystery, exploring how this painting breathes, how it lives beyond paint and plaster, how it becomes something more than Leonardo ever imagined, something that grows with each pair of eyes that meets it. Fact 61. The viewer's completion. Leonardo painted the Last Supper, but viewers complete it. Every person who stands before the wall brings their own experiences, their own sorrows, their own betrayals and forgivenesses. The painting becomes different for each witness, reflecting back what they bring to it. A person grieving sees sorrow. A person seeking hope finds redemption. A person wrestling with faith discovers questions that mirror their own. This is great ART's gift. It's never finished, never static, always in dialogue with whoever encounters it. You complete every artwork you see, every book you read, every song you hear. Your presence matters. Your interpretation has value. The painting is waiting for you, specifically you, to bring your unique understanding to its ancient story. Fact 62. The temperature of color. Leonardo used warm colors, reds and golds and browns, for the figures and foreground, creating intimacy and human warmth. The background recedes in cooler blues and grays, suggesting distance and atmosphere. This temperature contrast creates depth but also emotional meaning. The warm tones embrace us, invite us into the human drama, while cool tones remind us of transcendence, of something beyond the immediate moment. We live in this temperature spectrum, between warm human connection and cool cosmic perspective, between intimate present and distant eternal. The painting holds both, refusing to choose, suggesting we need both warmth and coolness, closeness and distance, the immediate and the infinite. Fact 63. The prior's immortality. That complaining prior, frustrated by Leonardo's slow pace, achieved a strange immortality through his impatience. We remember him now, 5 centuries later, because he couldn't understand genius at work. He wanted efficiency, productivity, measurable progress. Leonardo offered something else, depth, truth, beauty that required its own timeline. How many of us are like that prior? Rushing, impatient, unable to trust the process, wanting results now. But the painting whispers, slow down. Quality takes time. Truth cannot be hurried. The prior faded into obscurity while Leonardo's patient work endured forever. What will you be remembered for? Your speed or your depth? Your efficiency or your care? Fact 64. The Apostles' Archetypes. Each apostle represents not just a historical individual, but an archetypal response to crisis. Denial, anger, fear, confusion, protective aggression, sorrowful acceptance. We recognize these patterns because we've lived them. When shocking news arrives, we respond as these 12 did in all our human variety. Some of us become Peter, ready to fight. Some become John, overwhelmed by emotion. Some become Thomas, demanding proof. Leonardo painted the full spectrum of human reaction, honoring every response, judging none. There's no right way to face crisis. The painting gives us permission to be whoever we are in difficult moments, to respond authentically, to honor our own truth. Each response to that table is valid, is human, is enough. Fact 65. The horizon line's wisdom. The horizon line in those 3 windows behind Christ sits precisely at eye level for a standing viewer, drawing us into the painted space. But it also represents something profound, the meeting point of earth and sky, the boundary between material and spiritual, the threshold between here and beyond. Horizons are always promises, suggestions of more to come, invitations to journey onward. We can never reach the horizon. It retreats as we approach, yet it guides us forward. Leonardo painted this eternal horizon, this line we follow but never cross, reminding us that some destinations exist to inspire movement, not to be arrived at. The journey itself is the point. Keep moving toward your horizons, knowing the moving matters more than the arriving. Fact 66. The salt spill legend. Legend claims Leonardo painted spilled salt near Judas, an omen of bad luck. While this detail is too deteriorated to confirm, the story persists, becoming part of the painting's mythology. This is how art lives, not just in verified facts, but in stories told about it, interpretations woven around it, meanings found whether intended or not. The painting has become larger than itself, accumulating centuries of story and symbol. Your own life does this too, becoming more than mere facts, gathering meaning and interpretation, growing into something larger than any single moment. The stories people tell about you, the meanings others find in your actions, these become part of your truth too. We are all painted larger than we know. Fact 67. The space between figures. Look at the gaps between apostles, the spaces where bodies don't touch, where individuality is preserved even in crisis. Leonardo didn't paint them as an undifferentiated mass, but as distinct individuals, each occupying their own space, maintaining their own boundaries even while connected by shared emotion. This balance between connection and individuality, between community and autonomy, is life's central dance. We need both. We need to belong without dissolving. We need intimacy without losing ourselves. The painting models this balance, figures touching yet separate, together yet distinct. You can be fully present with others while remaining fully yourself. Connection doesn't require merger. Love doesn't demand dissolution. Fact 68. The Restoration's debates. The 21-year Restoration sparked intense debates. How much intervention is too much? When does restoration become creation? Some argue for minimal intervention, accepting the painting's deterioration as part of its history. Others wanted aggressive cleaning, revealing whatever remained of Leonardo's original. The restorers walked a careful line, removing centuries of overpainting and grime while preserving authentic Leonardo wherever possible. These questions have no perfect answers. When do we accept loss? When do we fight to recover? When is preservation better than restoration? These questions extend beyond paintings, into relationships, into lives. Sometimes we must accept what time has taken. Sometimes we must fight to restore what's fading. Wisdom lies in knowing which approach serves any given moment. Fact 69. The digital immortality. The Last Supper exists now in thousands of high-resolution digital images, scanned and measured and modeled in 3 dimensions. Future generations might experience it primarily through screens rather than standing before the actual wall. Some mourn this, calling it less authentic. But perhaps it's another transformation, another way the painting adapts to survive. The essential Leonardo, his vision, his genius, his questions, these transfer across mediums. The painting was always more than pigment on plaster. It is a way of seeing, a way of asking, a way of understanding human emotion and divine mystery. This essence survives every technological shift. What matters most about you isn't your physical presence. It's your essence, your impact, the way you make others feel. This survives every change, every distance, every transformation. Fact 70, the unbroken gaze. Christ's eyes in the painting, despite all the deterioration, still hold steady. His gaze is direct but not confrontational, accepting but not passive, fully present. Every other figure looks somewhere else, at each other, into space, inward. Only Christ maintains a steady, open gaze, directed at something beyond the frame, perhaps at us, perhaps at eternity. This unbroken gaze across 500 years creates connection, suggests consciousness, reminds us that some presences persist beyond physical form. When you remember those you've loved and lost, aren't they still somehow present? Don't their gazes still reach you across time and distance? The painting promises this, that presence outlasts presence, that connection survives separation, that love gazes steadily across every divide, even the divide between waking and sleeping, even now, gazing at you with infinite patience and understanding. Rest in that gaze now. Feel yourself seen, known, accepted. Let consciousness drift like dust motes in painted sunlight, floating, suspended, held in the eternal moment where the painting lives, where all seekers gather, where you belong. Part 8. The Timeless Conversation. We enter now the painting's deepest wisdom, where centuries of contemplation have revealed truths Leonardo perhaps didn't consciously know he was painting, where the work teaches lessons beyond its maker's intention, speaking across time with accumulated understanding. Fact 71. The fabric story. Every garment in the painting flows with careful attention to how fabric falls, how it gathers at elbows and knees, how it catches light and creates shadow. Leonardo studied drapery obsessively, making countless drawings of cloth arranged on mannequins. He understood that clothing is never just decoration. It reveals the body beneath, suggests movement frozen in time, creates rhythm and texture. These painted robes have weight, substance, reality. They ground the spiritual scene in physical truth. We too are clothed beings, presenting ourselves through what we wear, revealing and concealing simultaneously. The painting honors this human condition, this need to cover and display, to protect and express. Even our coverings tell stories about who we are or who we wish to be. Fact 72. The silence after words. Imagine the moment after the painting's moment. After the shock, after the denials, after the questions. What then? Silence must have fallen. Heavy, pregnant with knowing and not knowing. Leonardo captured the moment before that silence, but the silence waits just beyond the frame, inevitable, approaching. All crisis eventually gives way to quiet, to the long aftermath, to living with what we've learned. The painting knows this, suggesting through its frozen drama that stillness follows storm, that peace waits beyond panic. Whatever turbulence you carry tonight, know that silence comes. Peace arrives. The storm's moment passes, and quieter truth emerges. Let yourself anticipate that silence, that settling, that eventual calm. Fact 73. The Apostle Thomas's finger. Thomas, called Doubting Thomas for later demanding proof of resurrection, points upward with his index finger. This single gesture carries layers of meaning. Is he questioning heaven? Calling on God as witness? Making a theological point? The gesture is known as a finger debate, used in Renaissance art to suggest intellectual discourse. Leonardo gave Thomas this eloquent hand, this arguing finger, this embodiment of questions that demand answers. But there's compassion here too, recognition that doubt is not the opposite of faith but part of faith, that questions strengthen rather than weaken belief. Your doubts are welcome. Your questions matter. Thomas points upward, and the painting blesses his uncertainty. Fact 74. The geometric soul. Leonardo believed the human figure embodied perfect proportion, that we are walking geometry, living mathematics. The composition's proportions follow the golden ratio, that divine proportion found throughout nature. The placement of Christ, the spacing of apostles, the relationship between height and width, all follow mathematical harmonies. But these numbers never feel cold or mechanical. They create rightness, balance, the sense that everything sits exactly where it should. This is the miracle, that mathematics and emotion can unite, that structure and feeling need not conflict. Your own life has geometry, patterns you might not see but nonetheless guide you. Trust an underlying order, even when surface chaos seems to rule. Fact 75. The war that almost destroyed everything. On August 15, 1943, Allied bombs struck Milan. The refectory of Santa Maria del Grazie received direct hits. The roof collapsed. Walls crumbled. Yet the wall bearing the Last Supper remained standing, protected by sandbags and wooden supports that brave souls had erected. This survival feels miraculous, suggesting the painting has its own destiny, its own will to persist. How many times has it nearly been lost? To deterioration, to vandalism, to war, to simple neglect. Yet it endures. This teaches resilience, the power of protection, the importance of those who care enough to build defenses around beauty. What do you protect? What do you sandbag against inevitable storms? Your efforts matter as much as those who saved Leonardo's wall. Fact 76. The students' copies. Leonardo's students made copies while the master still lived, sitting beside him perhaps, learning by reproducing. These student works, less masterful but more intact, now help scholars understand the original's appearance. The students served Leonardo but also served the future, preserving what would otherwise be completely lost. This is how knowledge survives, through transmission, through teaching, through students who honor their teachers by passing forward what they learned. You are both student and teacher, learning from those before, teaching those after, even if you don't think of yourself this way. Every conversation is potential teaching. Every observation becomes lesson for someone. The chain of transmission includes you, essentially, irreplaceably. Fact 77. The psychological revolution. Before Leonardo, Last Supper paintings showed static arrangements, formal, symbolic but not particularly human. Leonardo revolutionized religious art by prioritizing psychology over theology, emotion over symbol, humanity over hierarchy. He painted a human moment, recognizable, relatable, universal. This shifted how religious art could function, what it could do, what it could say. Sometimes revolution comes not through rejection but through deepening, not through abandoning tradition but through making it more fully human. Your own authentic humanity, your genuine emotion, Your real confusion and fear and love, these are not separate from your spiritual life. They are your spiritual life. Leonardo painted this truth, that the sacred appears through the human, never apart from it. Fact 78. The window's promise. Those 3 windows behind Christ open onto landscape, but also onto possibility, onto elsewhere, onto beyond. Windows in art symbolize transition, threshold, the promise of other worlds. Leonardo could have painted a solid wall behind Christ, creating enclosure, finality. Instead, he painted openings, light, air, distance. This choice matters. Even in the darkest moment, when betrayal is announced, when loss becomes certain, windows remain. There's always beyond, always elsewhere, always possibility. The painting refuses despair, insists on openness, maintains hope through architectural metaphor. Whatever room you occupy tonight, know that windows exist, that walls have doors, that nothing is permanently enclosed. Possibility persists, always, even in darkness. Fact 7 to 9. The colors conversation. The apostles' robes create color conversations across the composition. A red here answers a red there. Blue dialogues with blue. Green responds to gold. Leonardo orchestrated these exchanges like a conductor, creating visual harmony through repetition and variation. No color stands alone. Each participates in the whole, contributing to the unified composition while maintaining distinct identity. This is community. This is relationship. This is how we function together. You don't exist in isolation. Your colors, your qualities, your particular hues, they converse with others' colors, creating larger harmonies. You are both distinct and connected, individual and communal, unique and universal. The painting models this balance and invites you into its harmony. Fact 80. The viewer's position. Leonardo calculated the Last Supper for a viewer standing at the refectory's entrance, about 15 feet from the floor. From this position, the perspective aligns perfectly. The illusion convinces completely. The painted room seems to extend the real room flawlessly. Move to a different position, and the illusion slightly breaks. Leonardo designed for a specific viewer in a specific location, acknowledging that art is always a relationship between object and observer, that perfect viewing requires right positioning. In life, too, perspective matters. Where you stand determines what you see. Moving, shifting position, finding the right angle, these actions change everything. The same situation looks different from different positions. Stay flexible. Keep moving. Search for the angle that makes meaning clear. The painting teaches us that truth depends partly on where you're standing. Settle into your own perfect position now, the place where you can finally rest, where perspective aligns, where illusion and reality merge, where painted light becomes real warmth, where you float between waking and dream. Part 9. The Eternal Return. Minutes 81 to 90. As we approach the final moments of our journey, let us gather all we've discovered, all the beauty and sorrow, all the questions and answers, all the human truths Leonardo preserved on that wall, and carry them gently into the night. Fact 81. The plaster's memory. The plaster itself holds memory, absorbing centuries of prayers spoken in that refectory, meals shared beneath its gaze, quiet meditations, whispered conversations. Plaster is porous, breathing, taking in what surrounds it. In some mystical sense, the wall has absorbed 500 years of human presence, becoming not just support for paint but repository of accumulated meaning. We too absorb what surrounds us, taking in experiences, holding memories in our very selves. You are made partly of everywhere you've been, everyone you've encountered, everything you've witnessed. Like plaster, you hold more than you know. This accumulated presence makes you rich, textured, deep. Honor what you've absorbed, what you carry, what lives in you. Fact data 2, the Apostle Bartholomew's stance. Bartholomew, at the far left, rises from his seat, ready to stand, to act, to respond. He is caught mid-motion, between sitting and standing, between stillness and action. This transitional posture embodies human responsiveness, our readiness to move when circumstances demand. Leonardo captured this potential energy, this coiled readiness, this moment before decision becomes deed. We live so much of life in this state, poised between options, holding multiple possibilities, not yet committed to one path. The painting honors this, suggesting that the moment before choice is powerful, pregnant, valuable. You need not always be in motion. Poised stillness has its own dignity, its own purpose. Rest in your own between state tonight, not yet decided, not yet committed, simply present with possibility. Fact 83, the painted sound. If you could hear this painting, you would hear overlapping voices, chairs scraping, fabric rustling, breath catching, perhaps a cup rattling on the table. Leonardo painted sound, made visible what should be audible. The open mouths, the animated gestures, the turned heads, all suggest noise, commotion, the chaos of simultaneous speech. Yet we hear nothing. The silence is eerie, poignant, powerful. The painting is eternally about to speak, forever on the verge of sound, permanently suspended in the instant before voices break the quiet. There's beauty in this silence, in the eternal pause, in the moment before words fail and gestures take over. Sometimes silence communicates more than sound ever could. Rest in this silence now, this painted quiet, this space where nothing needs to be said. Fact 84, the damage as text. Every crack, every flake of missing paint, every weathered surface tells its own story. The damage isn't separate from the painting. It is part of the painting now, inseparable from its meaning. We see not what Leonardo painted in 1498, but what time and chance and human action have made of it. This palimpsest, this layering of intention and accident, of creation and destruction, of preservation and loss, this is the actual artwork we encounter. Your own scars tell stories. Your weathering is part of your text. The damage you sustained, the losses you survived, these aren't separate from who you are. They are who you are. The painting teaches acceptance of this, even celebration. Wholeness includes brokenness. Completeness encompasses loss. Fact 85, the Apostle James the Greater. James the Greater, seated to Christ's left, spreads his arms wide, creating a gesture of shock, of disbelief, of helpless confusion. His entire body asks, how can this be? This full body questioning, this physical manifestation of internal turmoil, represents how profoundly emotion inhabits us. We don't just think feelings, we embody them. Our bodies express what our minds struggle to process. Leonardo understood this embodied consciousness, this way that shock spread from heart to fingertips, that sorrow bows the spine, that fear tightens shoulders. Your body knows things before your mind names them. Listen to what your body speaks tonight, the tension it holds, the relaxation it seeks, the position it wants to assume. Trust this bodily wisdom, this ancient knowing that precedes thought. Fact 86, the tourist paradox. Today, The Last Supper is one of the world's most visited artworks, yet viewing is strictly limited. 15-minute slots, small groups, controlled environment, protection from the breath and warmth of too many bodies. This creates a paradox. The painting draws millions, yet can accommodate only thousands. Popularity threatens what it seeks to preserve. This is modern ART's dilemma. How to share without destroying. How to provide access without causing damage. In your own life, similar paradoxes exist. Openness versus boundaries. Generosity versus self-preservation. Giving versus maintaining reserves. The painting offers no solution, only the reminder that some tensions have no resolution, only management, only the constant balancing act between competing goods. Fact 8 to 7. The Leonardo effect. After the Last Supper, religious art changed. Artists everywhere attempted to capture similar psychological depth, similar human authenticity, similar emotional truth. Leonardo's influence rippled outward, affecting Raphael, Michelangelo, generations of painters who saw what he'd done and understood ART's possibilities had expanded. This is legacy. This is influence. This is how one person's vision enlarges the world. You too create ripples. Influence others in ways you may never know. Expand possibilities through your authentic expression. Every genuine act, every honest emotion, every true word, these ripple outward, touching others, changing what seems possible. Your Leonardo effect is real, even if invisible to you. Trust your influence. Trust your impact. Trust that your presence matters beyond your knowing. Fact 88. The table's threshold. That table creates a painting's most important boundary, separating their space from ours, sacred time from present moment, past from now. Yet it's also an invitation, a place set for communion, a surface prepared for gathering. Boundaries can be both barrier and bridge, depending on perspective, depending on intention. The table says this far and no farther, while simultaneously saying, come, sit, share this meal. Life presents similar thresholds, boundaries that both define and connect, limits that paradoxically enable relationship. Your boundaries are not rejection, they are definition. They make intimacy possible by clarifying where you end and others begin. Honor your thresholds, your tables, your sacred boundaries that make true meeting possible. Fact 8 to 9. The restoration team's devotion. The restorers who worked for 21 years on the Last Supper, day after day, painstakingly cleaning, conserving, making impossible decisions about intervention. They developed relationships with the painting. They knew every inch, every crack, every surviving fragment. They loved it with patient, detailed, undramatic love. This is how great things are preserved, through unglamorous daily attention, through consistent care, through showing up again and again, even when progress seems invisible. What receives your patient attention? What do you tend faithfully? This tending, this faithful presence, this is how we preserve what matters. Not through dramatic rescue, but through quiet consistency. Your daily act of care, however small, are sacred work. Fact 90. The unspoken farewell. This is Christ's farewell dinner, though not all the disciples fully understand this yet. Leonardo painted goodbye, painted the last hours before everything changes, painted the final moment of that old world. Farewells live in this painting, endings, transitions, the last time of the time before. We all experience these threshold moments, these ends that are also beginnings, these farewells that hurt even as they promise transformation. The painting honors the pain of endings, doesn't rush past it, doesn't minimize the sorrow of goodbye, but it also suggests, through those windows, through that open vista, that farewells lead somewhere, that endings open into new landscapes. That goodbye is never the final word. Let this comfort you as sleep approaches, this daily farewell to consciousness, trusting that morning, like resurrection, waits beyond the dark. Feel yourself at the threshold now, saying goodbye to waking, greeting the dream country that waits, crossing from this shore to that, held safe in the crossing, knowing that every farewell leads home. Part 10. The painting dreams us. We arrive now at our journey's end, though truly there is no end, only this eternal moment where the painting lives, where we've been dwelling all along, where past and present and future collapse into one timeless now, and where we finally rest. Fact 91. The painting's survival is grace. Against all odds, against deterioration and war and neglect and time itself, the Last Supper survives. Not pristine, not unmarked, but present, still speaking, still teaching, still gathering witnesses. This survival feels like grace, undeserved, simply given. The painting didn't survive because it was perfect. It survived because people cared, because someone always stepped forward to protect it, because love persisted across generations. You too survived through grace, through care you didn't earn, through love you may not feel you deserve, through people who chose to protect what matters. Your survival, your persistence, your presence here tonight, this is also grace. Accept it, receive it, know yourself held by something larger than your own effort. Fact 9-2. The Apostle Matthew's turn. Matthew turns away from Christ towards Simon, seeking understanding, wanting explanation. He can't quite believe what he's heard. He needs to check, to verify, to make sense of senseless words. This turning toward community, this seeking others' confirmation, this is deeply human. We can't always process truth alone. We need witnesses, companions in confusion, others who heard what we heard. Matthew reminds us that community isn't just for celebration. It's for shock, for sorrow, for making sense of the senseless. Who do you turn toward in moments of disbelief? Who helps you process the unprocessable? These people are your Matthews, your essential companions. Honor them tonight, these witnesses who turn toward you when the world tilts. Fact 93. The light's democracy. Leonardo's light falls on everyone, on Judas as well as John, on betrayer and beloved alike. The painting doesn't withhold illumination from the guilty. Everyone receives light. Everyone is seen. Everyone matters enough to be rendered with care and attention. This is radical mercy. This refusal to condemn through shadow, this insistence that even Judas deserves to be painted with Leonardo's full genius. What would change if you believed this? That everyone deserves light, everyone merits attention, everyone contains depths worthy of patient exploration. Even yourself, especially yourself, on days when you feel like Judas, when you betrayed your better self, you still deserve light. The painting promises this. Darkness may gather, but light falls on everyone. Fact 9-4. The monastery's gift. The Dominican monks of Santa Maria del Grazie commissioned this painting, gave Leonardo the wool, made the masterpiece possible. Without their invitation, their patronage, their willingness to trust genius, the Last Supper wouldn't exist. They couldn't have known what they were making possible, what gift they were giving to 500 years of future humanity. Your invitations matter too. The spaces you create, the opportunities you offer, the trust you extend. These might birth something extraordinary. You may never know what your generosity makes possible. But the painting suggests you should offer it anyway, should create space, should invite genius, should trust the process. Your gift, your invitation, your yes, these might change everything. Fact 9 to 5, the eternal present. In the painting, it's always the same moment. Christ has just spoken. The apostles are forever reacting. The sun through those windows never moves. Nothing progresses, nothing changes, nothing resolves. This is the eternal present, the endless now, time stopped and stretched into infinity. Sometimes we're desperate for time to move, for pain to pass, for confusion to clarify. But sometimes, in rare moments, we want time to stop, to hold this instant forever, to never let go. The painting does both. It captures unbearable moment eternally, but in that eternal capture, it somehow transforms the unbearable into something we can contemplate, can study, can find beautiful. Your painful moments won't last forever, but they'll also never completely leave you. The painting teaches how to hold both truths, how to move forward while carrying the past, how to live in time while touching the eternal. Fact 9 to 6, the Apostle Simon's gesture. Simon, at the far right, gestures with open palms, a posture of questioning or perhaps offering. His hands spread in a gesture that could mean why, or look, or behold. This ambiguity is intentional. Leonardo painting gesture that holds multiple meanings, that suggests rather than declares. Not everything needs certainty. Not every gesture requires single interpretation. Ambiguity isn't confusion, it's richness. It's room for multiple truths. It's space for your understanding and mind to both be valid. The painting is generous in this way, offering meanings rather than meaning, inviting rather than insisting. Be like the painting, allow ambiguity, make space for multiple truths, offer openness over certainty.